Master Your Mindset with Nate Schooler and Kim Adele.
Hey.
How you doing?
All good, you?
Very good. Still getting weirded out by this like small box I see my face in, but I can live with it. So yeah, I mean, today, right, we are here to talk about how to overcome fear and be successful in career transition, right? And like, I know this is something that you know a lot about. I know quite a bit about it from personal experience, same as you do, right? And a lot of people have sort of reached out to me in the past week or two and sort of said, you know, they liked the content I was doing and they really needed perhaps a bit of help in this. So we're going to talk about three things. What's your goal? What are you afraid of? And who can help you with this transition? So yeah, thanks, Kim, for joining me.
Pleasure, lovely. And you're right. I think career transition is one of the things that so many of us get a little bit concerned about. I know I made one of my biggest career disasters many years ago, and it taught me a lot. I upped sticks, I relocated, I, go big or go home. And I realized that actually I was more focused on what I didn't want than what I did want, which is something that happens to so many of us. We're unhappy in the job that we've got. And instead we focus on the fact we don't want the one we have, rather than thinking about what is it I really want? What is it that's really going to give me joy? And that's what I'd done. So instead of running towards something, I was running away from something. And funnily enough, it didn't end well because I ended up with something that was significantly worse than what I had to start off with. And I was very fortunate. An old company came back for me. And I then spent the next 2 years commuting back to where I had relocated from. It wasn't the same company, so it was better than the job that I left. But it taught me that actually one of the first things you've got to do is be really clear on your goal. So understand what it is that you really want to do. And one of the things I always recommend to people is that when they're not busy, when they're not stressed, when they've got some time, to start thinking about, hi Ellen, to start thinking about actually where do I get my joy? What are the things that I do in life, not necessarily in work, but in life where I get joy, where I'm happy doing them? And then on the opposite side, where are the things that zap my energy? Where are the things where I don't get joy? Because if we're doing that without thinking about the job, we're being really honest with ourselves to say, actually, these are the things that we know that are really important to us. These are the things where we know if we have too many of them, we're going to be a little bit drained. And that allows us to start to think about that blueprint to when we're next looking at a job. And before we convince ourselves, as we often do, don't we? Go, oh my God, that's so me. That's got my name written all over it. That you look down at it and go, okay, yeah, maybe, but it doesn't have any of these things in that you really love, and it's full of all these things that you know are actually going to zap your energy, so it possibly isn't such a good fit for you. And I think the more we can do that to define the goal, it's so much easier then to make the transition, because often we think the transition has gone badly because we're not enjoying what it is we've ended up with, but actually that's more around the fact we didn't set the goal correctly in the first place.
Right. I mean, sometimes, a career transition can just kind of happen to us, right? Like, you can be made redundant or, end up being at the job center in outside. Back in the old days, I remember I've got a fond memory of getting a parking ticket on my motorcycle, about 12 years ago. And yeah, but they were only giving me like 36 pounds a week, right? This ticket was like 60 or something. But the thing is that if you're in that position, you might need to kind of just rethink. It's not like what's your goal. It's like where do you get your pleasure from, right? So then you might actually use that time to sort of learn some new skills and then perhaps move into something new, right?
Yeah, I think whatever the reason for the transition, whether that is one that you're wanting to control or whether or not you're in that position for something that's out of your control, i.e. redundancy, it's still about taking that time to say, what is it you want? Because then you can get back in control. So, what do you want the goal to be? And I appreciate sometimes the goal is I just want some income to come in so that I can pay the bills. I've been there. That's like,
yeah.
But it's still doing that piece. It's going, I know I need that, but actually, what else would I like? So, I want some income. I want to be able to pay my bills, but ideally, I'd also like it to be using my skill set so that I'm confident I'm not going to be, in a position where I don't have a job in the future. I think one of the other things, which is a real challenge, a lot of people that I talk to and work with over the years who have unfortunately been made redundant, is they think it's about them. And let me explain what I mean by that. They think they were made redundant because they're not good enough. They think they were made redundant because they weren't wanted, they weren't skilled, and that's not the case. If you've been made redundant, it's because the organisation couldn't afford to keep you on. If you weren't actually good at what you were doing, you would have been being performance managed. So it's not actually because you're not very good, it's because the company wasn't operating at the right level. And until you make that distinction, you make it about you, and then you start to doubt your ability, and you start to think that you're not good enough, that you're not worthy, that you're not going to be employable, that it's going to happen to you again and again. And you take that into your future. So one of the first things I do is help people with that mindset piece, which is actually how do you make sure that you are in the right mindset, that you understand your value, and that you recognize that actually that happened to you, not as a result of you, because it's a really important distinction to help people to be able to step into their future and build the career they want to build.
Yeah. So what would you say to someone that's out of work right now or wanting to get a new job because they absolutely hate their job? What would you say to them?
Hi, Izzy. So I think
Hey,
you
Izzy.
are either hating your job or you're out of work and you want to get into work. Think about what is it you really want to do. So I know that can be very difficult. If you're in that place where you're out of work and you want to get into work, it might be a case of I've got to take any job to get some income. But that doesn't mean to say you've got to stick with that job. So I think you can still have a look at where's the ideal going to be. I might have to take this temporary job because actually it's going to give me what I need to pay the bills, but I'm still going to focus on my long-term one. And that's often the piece that we forget to do, which is what's our long-term focus? Where is it we want to be? What's our career plan? And sometimes we need to take those like sideways steps or sometimes backward steps to enable us to be able to propel forward, but really start to think about what is it I want to do and what do I need to be able to get there. So do I need to learn some new skills? Do I need to brush up some skills that I've already got? But really start to think about what those are, and then who might be able to help you. So if it is a skill you don't have currently, how might you learn that? Can you do it by reading a book? Can you do it by online learning? Can you do it by going to a lesson? Can you go and get a mentor? Work out what are your options, and then have a look at which ones of those feels the best fit for you, because it's got to be a good fit for you to make sure that you're going to be the one that does it. We all learn in a very different way, as you know, because we read the same books, and I plow straight through as fast as possible, and you're much more structured, and you reflect more on what it is that you're learning, and you're a little bit less bull in a china shop.
Yeah, I don't know. I think sometimes, I mean, Isabel makes sorry, I pushed that at the same time. Twice. Go on, you push it. Yeah, she makes a good point here, and I think this is a big thing. Putting immediate needs before longer term need. That's the biggest. It's a really tough one to move our lives in the right direction. Sometimes, yes, you're right. You might need to take a second job. You might need to get a different job that doesn't pay you so much. Maybe you can listen to some training whilst you're working. Like I've got an old school friend. He's like a van driver, right? And he had his own transport business, lost his transport business. And I'm like, look, you need to go and get some audiobooks. You need to like upskill, learn some new skills. And then perhaps go and try and get some volunteer work. I mean, getting some volunteer work with an organization that is going the way that you want to go, aligning with the mentors and the team is a great way to begin your learning. I look at that as in a way of getting a free education. Is my own opinion on that.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And I think sometimes it's making sure that we look for the opportunities to learn. And I think for me, why it's important that we keep an eye of focus on where we want to go is, I often share this story with people. I had a guy that I worked for me many years ago. Lovely, lovely guy, kind of the dream, that turns up to his appraisals and has got all the evidence to back why he thinks he should get the rating that he should get. It makes it so easy for you then to be able to kind of give them those ratings and defend them. But actually, when I was talking to him about his personal development plan, his short-term goal was to be a good project manager, and which was interesting. So I was chatting to him about, what would be different about when you were, really good at what you did? And he said, well, people would come to me and seek me out for their projects, and people would ask my advice, and I would mentor people. And I was like, okay, so how's that different to today? And he went, oh, good point. I'm already there. And I went, well, that's great. So we've achieved the short-term goal. Let's look at your long-term goal. So we looked at his long-term goal, and his long-term goal was to be a program manager. And so I asked him a few more questions about that, because I was like, from what I know of you, I don't really think that's your long-term goal, but let's just see where it is. And actually, it was only his long-term goal because it was the next logical step, not because it was actually his dream job. So once we started digging into it, it was like, actually, where's your passion? What is it that you would really love to be able to do so that you can really kind of set things going and build that career? And he was like, I'd really like to be in acquisition. And I said, okay, well, that's great. So let's see how we can move you now to start to get a bit of a feel for what acquisition might look like. So let me get you involved in some projects with the acquisition team so that you can start to understand. Because if you're not careful, what will happen is you've done project manager, you'll do program manager, you'll then move into direction. You'll get so far up that line that you can't afford to take the sideways step, because actually you're too used to the money, because we start to live to our means, don't we? We earn more money and all of a sudden we spend it. I think the research shows that you get a pay rise and the positive impact on you, it takes 3 days. And that's because even if you've not physically spent it yet, you've mentally spent it. You've worked out what it is that you're going to do. So I think for me, it's making sure that you keep calling yourself back to say, I've had to take this job because I needed to do so, because it was means to an ends, pays the bills. Still ask yourself those questions to say, but where is it I want to go, and how do I move myself forward to achieve that, to ensure that you're still taking that control and not ending up in a position where actually your career path's happened to you, as opposed to you've actually owned it and directed where you want it to go.
That's the biggest problem. And it's the same with a business. If you don't turn around and say, well, in 5 years' time, I've got a plan and I want to be here, then how are you going to get to that position, right? And I know you've seen this comment as well.
Yes,
It's a really long comment, right? Big thing is, if we share it on the screen, it'll cover the whole screen. So there'll be like, you won't even see our eyes, right? But like, so she says, passion is important, but sometimes we get distracted or depressed because life happens. And she's wondering if we've got any tips on how can someone keep a long-term focus, or how we can train ourselves to achieve a long-term focus.
Yeah, it's a great question, Izzy. And I think for me personally, I always focus on what is it I want to achieve, and why do I want to achieve it? So defining my intention at the start. So why is it important to me? Might be, is it just for me? Is it because I want to do it because it adds value to other people? I want to do it because it's the right thing to do. I want to do it because it's going to help me give my little girl a better start in life, whatever it is. But really define it, because actually then when we lose focus, the first is being self-compassionate. Life does get in the way and we can lose focus, but it's about recognizing it and going, okay, I've lost a little bit of focus. That's fine. Let me bring myself back to my why. Why was I doing this? What was my intention? Why was it important? And that helps me to get back on track. I think sometimes before I showed any form of self-compassion, I would instead get myself into a spiral of berating myself for having lost the focus in the first place, and then continue to not have any focus while I continued to berate myself for not being very focused. So actually, for me, the steps I now take is to acknowledge that life does get in the way and it's okay to lose focus, but remind myself of why I was doing it. And is that still important to me? And then somebody said to me a long time ago, and it's a great tip for me personally, which was, the next time you find yourself saying, I don't have the time, or I don't have the money, or I don't have the resources, or I don't have the whatever it is, instead, ask yourself the same question, but instead of I don't have the, go, it isn't important to me, and see how it sits. And if it sits uncomfortably, it reminds you of the why. And that is going to be what pulls you back onto the focus. And for me, that has been a real killer, because even though I don't like it, with the minute I say, oh, bless you, thanks, Izzy. And you're right, I think it is the why, because that's what compels us to do it. And it's what drives us. It's that passion. But I think whenever I've said to myself, it's not important to me, I don't like it. And therefore I have to find a way around it, to find an alternate solution.
Yeah, I agree. But I also think, this question that I put in the introduction, right? What are you afraid of, right? It's a big one, because actually, like, every so often I will be like scared of success. Yeah. And then it's like, and I think being scared of success is like, well, what are people going to hassle me for? Like, people are going to ask me, or I'm going to be really busy when I become massively successful. Like, there are all these things that, and if you don't address the reasons why you're scared, like, what are you afraid of? You're going to basically just end up just carrying on this trajectory of things that you don't really enjoy that much. And this is really very sad.
Yeah, it's right. And we can become massive self-sabotagers based on what we think. And I think I spent a lot of years thinking that the thing that we're most afraid of is our darkness. And I now think we're most afraid of our light. We're most afraid that we might actually be good at something. And then that's a little bit scary, isn't it? Because that feels a bit egotistical. I might be good at something. And then if I am good at something, does that mean everyone's going to come and try and knock me down? Because we do, pity loves a party. People do like to celebrate the negatives rather than celebrate the positives. But I think some of it is kind of looking at those bits and saying, what is the worst that can happen, and can I live with that? Because we are often afraid. We're afraid of being made wrong, being made to look stupid, of people having expectations of us that we're not going to be able to meet, of not being good enough, of being too good. It's like, it doesn't really matter. We have a brain that is based on fear, and it was designed that way to keep us safe. Our brains were designed back when we were prehistoric man, but we're not in such danger, not in the same danger now. So I think we've just got to start questioning. And for me, again, that kind of looking at the fear and then looking at why it's important to me it really helps, because then I look at that and say, well, actually, if this is really important to me, which is more scary? The fear that I might do it and get it wrong, or the fear I might not achieve it at all and not deliver my purpose. And that for me gives me an opportunity to find some strength and move forward. Forgive me, I'm doing this because I'm about to read. Izzy, bless you, you've written something long and I don't want to be rude and not like I'm doing this, but I'm just reading it.
I've read and heard. Do you want me to let me read it?
Yeah.
I've read and heard that question repeatedly for the last 2 weeks. Sometimes the universe is trying to tell us something. We need to be observant of the opportunities around us. Exactly. And if you don't take that chance, you're going to regret it. Like, this is the biggest thing I've been thinking about recently myself,
But I think, and it's a great point, Izzy. And I think, though, if you know what your goal is, because the way our subconscious brain works is our subconscious brain filters. Because there's millions of things that are flying at it all the time. So it filters out the things that it thinks are unimportant to us. And it judges what's important to us and what isn't by what we think about. So if we're thinking constantly of all the things we don't want, it goes and tries to find them for us, because it doesn't understand the difference between help and harm. So if instead we start to define the goal of what we do want, of what we really are trying to achieve, it will find us the opportunity. It's a little bit like, if you suddenly decided you want to go and get a particular car in a particular color, and all you see is those cars everywhere. It's not because there's suddenly more people out there driving the car of your dreams. It's because you're thinking about it, and therefore your subconscious brain starts looking for it for you. The same is true of anything that we're trying to achieve. So I think if we can really define what it is we're wanting to do, then actually our subconscious brain will start to find those opportunities. And it's happened to us, hasn't it? Just like last couple of weeks, we're like, oh my God, there's so many opportunities flying at us all the time. It's like, what on earth's happened? And I think what's happened is we've just got a lot clearer and a lot more focused on what it is that we're trying to achieve and what impact we are trying to have in the world. And therefore our subconscious brains are actually highlighting the opportunities as opposed to pushing them away when we were perhaps a bit more fearful.
Very much so. I mean, I think we do have another question here, but we have to get off because you've got a meeting, and we will get back to this. I think on the next one, we'll do, who can help you with this transition. I mean, coaches definitely can help you. And if you are a coach and you're watching this, then, and you want to, or you're an executive and you want to grab some free training, go to elitecoachesclub.com and you can grab some information on the Grow training, which will help you with your goal setting, right? And
it can really help with career transition because it actually takes you through what's your goal, what's your current reality, what are your options and your obstacles, and then what are you going to do next? What's the way forward, and what are you willing to do next, which is equally important because some of these steps you're going to have to push yourself out of your comfort zone. So we've designed it there to hopefully help people that are looking for help.
Very much so. So thanks for watching. We really appreciate everybody. And thank you so much for your time, Kim.
Pleasure. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Master Mindset. Please don't forget to follow wherever you listen.